have enough to pay this. We have the potential of 3 payrolls this week, or this month, so it would be, yeah.
John, there's no tax.
I do not have, right.
There is no tax exoneration.
And exoneration.
Audience comment. Mr. Madden.
Sir, as required by our contract, I submitted a third step grievance to Terry this afternoon with the council.
Okay.
I'm required to notify you at the next council meeting to discuss it.
Okay, we'll dig that up for the next council meeting. Yep.
That's great. And John.
Audience comment. Yes, Amy.
I have a question regarding proposed amendment to the rental permit ordinances and the projected timeline for anything going on with that.
We passed that like the last meeting, so that was just the first meeting. We need at least 30 days. I guess the 28th we could. 28th, I believe, would be the 30 days. I'm not exactly sure what day that
We're not
was.
sure who's on the agenda.
Yeah, I would say we'd probably wait to January because I'm not sure what the meeting, first 28th, that wouldn't be 30 days. Probably the first meeting in January.
Okay. Is there potential for discussion on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you can do it now, we can do it, we'll definitely have a discussion before the meeting.
Here's my opinion on that, is that in working with the downtown properties, the sale of or the leasing of primarily the first floors at this point, and knowing the second floors and some of the potential for some of those properties, in addition to working with the multi-units throughout the city, and some concern with the permitting fees, the parking situation, and some of the requirements. 2 different areas: permitting fees and parking for obtaining permits that are not currently in place, and also looking at square footage requirements for primarily the downtown. I have talked with Jim Wilson from the Danville Business Alliance, and they had conducted an upper floor study through Penn State. I have the findings from that, and I feel that it would strongly behoove us to look at that study and its effects that it's had on Danville, being one of the closest communities that have seen some success from utilizing the findings of that study, and potentially with some of our duplexes and side-by-side levels in particular, and seeing that some of these where we've had lots of owner occupancy, some of them don't have permits for the second side, and working towards something that might be a little more conducive to people coming in and wanting something for owner occupancy, that it's not so cost prohibitive for them to do so. So maybe looking at a few of those things and doing a focus group consisting of many parties, and trying to include maybe Mr. Wilson from Danville with his input on that upper floor study for the downtown. I just think to make any amendments, it just come to my attention that this was all taking place, and I think that if we're going to make amendments, rather than doing something that's reactive to one thing, let's look at everything and potentially move forward with some things that'll benefit the entire community.
It always benefits if you use somebody else's study, so I'd be honored to see that. If you could get me a copy, and I'll get a copy of you guys.
Yep.
And I don't know, I remember at the last meeting, I did ask Megan to bring anybody in she could bring in next time, so I'm assuming she talked to you about this. But yeah, we would, if they've had their study, they're 12 miles up the road, so by far we'd like to look at that. So if you can bring me that in, we'll make a copy of it, and
Great.
make sure these guys look at it, and we'll definitely talk it over.
One of the important things that I've taken from talking with him is that normal projection is it takes about 7 years to turn a community. And they're on about year 5 of this entire transformation up there. In the last 2 years, from a real estate perspective, most of Danville Mill Street was for sale. And most of it has sold, and they've had a lot of success with investors or businesses coming in and renovating those second floors that are either generating income or bringing people that are able to use the businesses on the first floor and live on the second floor because they've lessened some of the restrictions of the renovating. So I think it's really important that we look at that and why reinvent the wheel?
Sure, no, I agree.
Use something that's going to be free and look at it and use their successes.
Geisinger put a ton of money in their downtown, didn't they?
It did, but we have a lot of potential right here. We've discussed this over.
No, I agree,
and over
I know they bought a lot of
Yep,
buildings down there.
Absolutely. Well, several, but there's outside that have come in too, so.
Yeah. You have a vibrant downtown, you really do.
Mhm.
It's not laid out very nice, but it's nice downtown, a lot of buildings in it. It's hard to get through. Any other questions? Comments? Mr.
Gina
Snell?
Russell, please. I
right.
think I'm hearing correctly that, Mr. Mayor, you abstained from voting for the Nori Bank because you just said that your daughter works for the bank?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should or not, so I did.
All right, and so I guess my question is, and I'm not an attorney, your daughter is the controller, the city controller?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so if we were to accept that loan from Nori Bank, that would be a conflict of interest, correct?
No. Why would it be a conflict of
I
interest?
said I'm not an attorney.
No, there's no conflict of interest.
So to accept the loan from Nori Bank in which the daughter is the controller and the mayor's daughter, I would think she'd be getting some sort of commission or something at the end of the year based on the amount of money?
No, no, and as a technicality, him abstaining removes any.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It said as a technicality, him abstaining from the vote is where you're avoiding any real conflict of interest that may or may not exist, but there's no other conflict.
Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah, Jim Snyder, Sunbury Supply Company. We want to thank Mr. Reichner for the last summons I got. I did plead not guilty, so we'll go from that. I'll address that at another meeting. But right now, I'd like to know how many people got licenses for the new Sunoco contractors?
I'm assuming everybody that worked over there.
Well, have you checked it out?
I would imagine my department has, yes.
I'm gonna guess they're not on the contractors list.
Who is?
They're not on the contractors list?
Talk to my clerk.
What do you do?
What do I do? I run that department.
Well, I'm gonna suggest then that you go back and look at all the people who worked over there and I'll be back at the next meeting, and inform me, let me know who has licenses and who didn't.
We will do that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Regina Russell, I do have one more question. With those ordinances that were brought up at the last meeting, I think they were tabled. So when will we hear if that's going to, if all of those ordinances are going to be passed or not? Because if I recall straight, you were going to go over them. I looked at that property and I think it's a Mr. Heller owns the property that has a fence up in front of it, but it's not level. It has a lot of bricks, piles of dirt.
They weren't tabled, they were, you have to advertise. We passed them on the first reading, and you advertise so people know what's happening. And then in 30 days, that's why we said we wouldn't do it on the 28th, in 30 days we vote on it. So in between that, you have all time to look and review and bring your questions at the council meeting, but they won't pass on the second reading, put them into effect until the January meeting.
Well, then I definitely want to address the signs, because from what I recall, you were talking about the type of signs people can put on their private property. Is that correct?
Wasn't that one tabled?
Yeah, that was
tabled.
That wasn't even voted
I
on.
don't think we
Yeah,
voted on that.
That was tabled.
Yeah.
And
That's why I'm asking the question.
Yes, that one in
I
particular,
am
everything
asking.
else was.
we found out that there's this federal law pertaining to that, and we've got to research that on something that's called the, it's something Highway Act. Yeah, Clean Highway Act. And it's a federal act, and that's the reason why all the political signs were being yanked. It's a federal law about that, and the state wasn't abiding by it, and they were gonna forfeit $85 million a year if they didn't abide by it. That's why all this stuff and all those, anything that's on a state right of way on a controlled route, it's not, there's no signs at all allowed. If there's an existing billboard or something up, that's one thing. But these signs that go, or that are tied on these things, which if somebody says, we're Joe Blow's Auto Parts and we're gonna have a weekly special, people are happy about that, but they're not happy about it when someone says, our church is having a chicken barbecue. But there's no distinction as far as that goes. Every sign has to be, it's not allowed up there on the state right of way. If the city makes a resolution that changes that, they will abide by that, but then the city assumes all liability and responsibility for any lawsuits. We just read a meeting last Friday on that. And
This is a big issue, because
Yeah.
right now, St. Monica's has a big sign on their fence for the Shikellamy play.
Yes, and so
So-
does the Edison
And it would be a
Hotel.
shame to have to take that down,
Mhm.
because Shikellamy doesn't own that corner. So that needs a lot of work, and I share your concerns, and I think some other
But we,
people on council.
right now,
Thank you.
it's a controlled route, and we have nothing in it unless we make a resolution. When we make that resolution, then we assume all liability if there's an accident or death or anything like that. Somebody looking at the sign and hits somebody or something like that. That's the way it was explained.
Do we approve specific places in the city?
No, if
Or
it's,
do we have to do the whole city?
no, if it's on a controlled route, which means the route that the city has, 147, 61,
It doesn't have to be in the right of way?
Yes.
it has to be in
I'm
the
not
right
sure,
of way.
that fence is back pretty far from the street. You have all the silos, that
What's
might
the right
not
of
be
way
in.
in Front Street, Joe? What's the right of way in Front
What do
Street?
you think that is, John? You think a fence in the,
It varies.
And that's exactly what they said, it varies from a few feet to
I'm
hundreds of
talking
feet.
about off-premise signs only, right?
Well, even an on-premise sign, the state would have to approve before they could put it up on the right of way.
I think the act you refer to is the old Lady Bird Johnson Act.
It's called the Highway Beautification Act, that's what it's called.
Yeah. And it's usually to control billboards, off-premise billboards, like
He
a
said
fire
any
route
signs at all.
54 and all that.
Right.
I don't know.
I got a packet of it, I just got a packet through Linda Culver's office, I got it emailed to me and I have it printed out.
we agree with that. Well, there's nothing, we didn't pass anything on the first reading.
So what prompted this?
Good ACLU.
What prompted that to happen?
The state went out and took all these signs down.
It was the state, and then you questioned and they came back with this
That's
as a
when they sent that
response.
thing to Rick.
All right, thank
But
you.
they, what signs did they take down? Just the political signs?
No, they ripped the signs down coming into Sunbury and coming off the bridge, they took all them off the
Churches having
fences.
barbecues.
Yeah, I understand they had a complaint from somebody on the city on that one. That's why they did it.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I didn't complain, so I don't know, I don't have a clue.
No, I have the name. The lady gave it.
Okay.
And by the way, that act doesn't only apply to signs on the right of way, it actually applies to off-premise signs.
Oh, you're absolutely
beyond the
right,
right of way.
you're right. And, you know, if I owned a business, I could advertise at my business, but I couldn't advertise for my business at my house or someplace
Well,
like
she
that.
wanted to get rid of all the billboards. She didn't want any billboards on my side, so I don't know, some of you are too young to remember this. But she was on a crusade to beautify the country, and she wanted no highway billboards. Another wacky Washington.
Spend too much time on the floor. Any other audience comment? Yes, sir.
Could I ask you about the police report? Why am I getting a chance to read it?
When, are you gonna get time to read it?
No, why can't we get a chance to read this police report that's been commissioned $28,000?
It's all personnel issues right now.
That's
Yeah, it's
personnel
personnel
issues.
issues. Yes, sir.
So where do personnel issues stop and when does illegal activity start?
When it's not personnel.
But
Anything
how
that's
do we know if we're not
personnel
allowed to
issues,
see it?
we can't release personnel issues.
Oh, yes, you
No,
can.
you can't.
Under the Right to Know Act, you can hide behind it, but it doesn't say you can't release it.
Comment, gentlemen?
At this point in time, it's privileged confidential material that is protected by attorney-client privilege. So it's part of this ongoing personnel issue, and at this point, they don't have to release it.
But when it's over, can it be released by a right to know at that point?
I don't believe so. I believe it'll be attorney-client privilege. It'll be up to the city to decide.
When all of a sudden did you decide that it was attorney-client privilege? I mean, we had seen the articles and heard the articles in the media that it was going to be released. Oh, yes, it's going to be released, it's going to be released, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, personnel issues.
Let me just say something here. We have an ongoing situation. It's not helpful to have bits and pieces leak out while the situation is ongoing.
And I appreciate that.
I think at some point, the city probably should release a report, maybe not the details of that report, but I believe the city owes the citizens an explanation.
Yes.
So, but whether it's to release that particular report or to give you as taxpayers and citizens a summary of what happened or something, but I think that depending on the outcome and so forth, there could possibly be that kind of a report, but rather than release all these particular detailed documents.
Well, and correct, I appreciate that and I understand that. But here we have 16,000 and then 2 days later in the paper it's 28. I mean, that wasn't known 2 days ago, before it hit the paper at 28. I mean, something just sounds really funny.
Well, actually, when we voted back in the summer to do this, I think that there was an agreement, and I think that agreement, the figure in that was like 26,000. So 16 was what had already been paid. That just came from the records, you know, the treasurer's report, which showed the 16,000 paid. There has been an additional bill paid since then.
And I also think that it's not strictly on this report. I think that money is also part of the contract negotiations.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's how much
Well,
some of
that
has
wasn't clear in
contract.
any of the media
But
reports.
again, and I don't know what, I didn't see what, it's contract negotiations also.
How much you think of that is so far, Kev, just for the union?
I couldn't see a breakdown on any of them, so I couldn't tell you.
And then I'll just echo John's, that's why it's important to let the outside counsel do their ongoing investigation and let this fully develop before anything is, disclosed. It's attorney-client privilege as part of personnel.
So if it's 28,000 now and it's ongoing, how much more are you going to spend?
As much as we have.
And does the insurance company cover that? It's not actually coming out of the city's pocket, the budget, it's actually coming out of the city's budget and not being covered by the insurance company?
It's being paid for at this point by a private grant.
By a private grant.
So it's not coming out of tax revenue.
So now that we're on that plane, where's the money coming from to go after people like Mr. Snyder? When there was already...
No, we're not going after anybody. He violated an ordinance.
Well, there was already a ruling by a judge.
No. What he's talking about tonight, he did a job without getting a permit. And we went to our third party inspector, and he said he needs a permit to do the job. That's what this one's about.
But you're
Just a second,
contesting
before you,
the ruling.
well, hang on, let's correct that statement, please. He hasn't even looked at this. He took the information over the phone evidently. So it was the way it was described to him, and whether or not I needed a permit. So you got conflict of interest because before it was a boiler when you went to the paper.
No.
Yes, it was.
If it was a boiler, we never told anybody it was a boiler.
The paper said it was a boiler. I asked you before at the meeting, and you said, I said, where did I get a boiler? I never installed a boiler in Pennsylvania, or in Sunbury. And you said, oh, I'm sorry, that was a water heater.
Yeah, well,
That's what you told
I
me.
didn't tell anybody it was a boiler. I told the people there was...
Evidently, the paper, the way they wrote it up, said information came from you.
Well, I gave them, they requested the information I got from the county, and I gave them a copy of the stuff I got from the county.
Well, they said, quote, you told them it was a boiler, and you told them it was air conditioning units.
And you did put air conditioning units in.
we're working our way back here, we're talking about the boiler versus the water
If
heater.
I said boiler, I apologize, you might have put a boiler in one of the county buildings in Shamokin.
No,
Well, but what I'm saying is we got all the work you've done,
I know what you got.
okay, and I gave them that same information that I got from the county.
Yeah, and you also described my permit to, any whatever it is, any IC.
Yes, I did.
Well,
He said any hot water heater requires a permit, any hot water heater.
well, my conversation with them was, he said, imagine that. You know, and I said, well, where did you get your information? He said, I said, did you look at this? He said, no, he did not look at it.
Well, he wouldn't look at it if there wasn't a permit issued.
You know, I guess I would look at it if I would. I mean, I don't want to get off the subject here. But, I mean, just for the heck of it, if we're going to talk about it. I was going to bring it up the next meeting, but. There's my boiler, and there's a drinking fountain that I did.
This is a hot water heater, right?
It says right on hot water heater.
Okay, and that's what I told him. But I said, he said it's a 3-gallon hot water heater, and he said it doesn't matter if it's a gallon.
And it's a plug-in, but it's also smaller than that water cooler that I don't have to pay a fine for. And that's a plug-in also. It's not hardwired or anything like that. But I got a citation here that's gonna cost me, 300 and some bucks. But when I appeal it, it'll cost me more than that for attorney fees, and as I said before, you better increase our budget for this year because it's gonna get high.
Any other questions? Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't have a question, but I would like to say something. I don't know if I'm gonna be here for the next meeting or not, and I would like to thank Councilman Shipman for his work with the city. You have been a breath of fresh air, and we're gonna miss you, sir.
Thank you. Francis?
I do, I couldn't talk about the $28,000 because I got it from the treasurer's office, and he didn't say to me that it wasn't necessarily all of it, but we don't have any other detailed bills, so as far as it's concerned, $28,000 was paid to that Philadelphia firm, is that correct?
Correct.
So without a detailed breakdown of what those bills actually are, all we know is that $28,000 was paid to them. Does that help clarify?
Thank you. Another comment? We don't have to talk about the slate covered our New Year's celebration, GPS and dash camera policy, John?
In your packet, I have a proposed employee policy concerning the GPS units and dash cameras which we'll be installing. Those units are for the protection of the city employees, the people who live here and or travel through, and for the city itself. Obviously, it's in our best interest to make sure that they work and that nobody is playing around with them or trying to disconnect them and so forth. So this is I'd like to have each of you look this over. I'd like to ask our solicitor to look this over, and we'll put it back on the agenda for 2 weeks to vote on it.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
And not saying this would happen, but I'm just curious on something. GPS is in the cars, okay, and say three police are sitting on a corner and they're doing a sting operation. Who has access to see where they're at?
It will be private. The city will have a secure portal that only we can see it. It will be a secure portal.
Who is the we, like the police chief, county, council?
Probably the mayor's office, the chief, maybe the treasurer's office, but it would be very limited access.
Okay.
Okay, this is, we don't want anybody else tracking our.
Well, that's all I'm saying, not to say it would happen, but you can say your cousin was, you know, whatever.
Okay, police contract negotiation committee. Right now, that's John, myself, and Brianna, and we've actually to the point where we have an offer to give them. We'll probably do it sometime this week. But on the police side, it's Officer Mazzio, Slack, and Hawes. What I'd like to do is, so everybody understands this, they're not going to get this approved by the end of the year, there's no question about it. That's going to be a January or February thing. So we want to make sure that John stays part of that committee, because he's the one who got all the health care money together and did a major part of this. So I'm just announcing that we're going to keep him on there. John will be part of that committee until we get to the very end. And the same way we follow through with the lawsuit thing, he'll be part of that committee to the end of that also. Any other announcements? I want to thank everybody for coming. This meeting's adjourned. Yes.
Have you heard who they're putting in Cowbungus? Me neither. How you doing there, Zachary?
Meetings are so much fun.
Oh my God. Definitely interesting. Yeah, definitely interesting. Did you come for the
I always want to come to